August 2016, a vicious murder tears one family apart.
No one saw this coming. How could anyone do this to such a sweet old man?
Brittany Dwyer is obsessed with the television show American Horror Story.
She loved everything about the show, the characters, the storyline, and especially the murders.
Off-screen, Brittany is a bullied teenager with an addiction to drugs and alcohol. So she tries to escape her life by getting lost in the TV show American Horror Story.
The TV show gives Brittany comfort. She can binge watch American Horror Story and forget all her problems back in the real world.
But when the show motivates her to do the unthinkable, a true copycat killer is born.
Brittany couldn't hack it in the real world. So she turned to a fantasy television show and tried to find answers there.
For Brittany, attempting to get what she wants will lead to murder.
Brittany thought she could use what she saw on the screen to get what she wanted. Even if it involved blood, guts, and murder.
Hi, Grandpa!
19-year-old Brittany Dwyer comes from a close-knit family.
From the outside looking in, Brittany had a perfect life.
Trust me.
She had everything to make her life the perfect dream, except maybe a picket fence.
But even though Brittany seems to have it all, she isn't satisfied.
Brittany had gotten herself into some trouble, and she was looking for a way out.
Brittany is high on the adrenaline rush from watching the TV show American Horror Story. A show in which a character named Violet has a life much like her own.
Like Violet, Brittany doesn't really have a lot of friends. She's an outcast. And Violet and Brittany were both very close to their families, despite the fact that they were going through tough times.
Brittany!
In her mind, there was no other way. Murder was the only answer.
No one would ever imagine young, sweet Brittany would be the one to cause her family such heartbreak.
She had a pair of loving parents. She had an older brother who was always watching out for her.
Brittany Dwyer is a teen who is beloved by everyone. She seems to get along well with all of her friends and family.
16 years ago today, my beautiful, beautiful baby Brittany was born.
Brittany's mother, Tanya, and her father, Gary, dote on their only daughter.
The family was an intact family with a lot of love and concern for each other.
Happy birthday to Brittany!
Life was pretty good in the Dwyer home.
Thanks, Grandpa.
Her life looked perfect from the outside.
Besides her immediate family, Brittany is also the apple of her grandfather's eye.
Brittany was close with her granddad, Robert Whitwell. They loved each other, and just like her parents, Granddad doted on her.
Hi, Grandpa!
This is fantastic!
Robert Whitwell was an 81-year-old man who doted on his granddaughter, felt very strongly connected to his family, and he was just a pleasant, happy, supportive kind of guy.
I miss you.
We miss you too.
Even though they live over 1,000 miles apart, Brittany and her grandfather share a special connection.
I think when we think of our grandparents, we think of an individual who is there for us always.
Okay, that sounds great.
Someone who is very caring. Someone who may be more tolerant and indulging than our own parents.
Bye, Grandpa. We love you lots. We miss you.
They were peas in a pod. Brittany loved her granddad, and certainly the same could be said for him toward his granddaughter.
Brittany's life appears flawless, but once she enters high school, teen angst gets the best of her.
Brittany was a tomboy. She was strong-willed and a little adventurous as a child.
For Brittany, once hormones started changing, it became very apparent to her that she was gay. But there's no one in high school that she can relate to or bond with or be friends with because no one else is out. Plus the population would be much smaller than the heterosexual population. So all she's seeing is she's in isolation and she's alone.
She felt like the odd person out all the time. And her insecurities started building.
Brittany's happy-go-lucky disposition starts to change.
She is in the closet, she knows she's gay, but she can't meet anyone that she can relate to because she's hiding what she is. Because if she came out in high school, she would then be bullied. And so then she becomes a bully. She becomes someone that is going to reject everyone else before they can reject her.
But soon, Brittany's plan backfires.
Once Brittany adopted this behavior, everybody wanted to keep a far distance from her. So she became more and more isolated. And then suddenly, people were bullying her. And there was nobody to stand up for her.
She was being teased and picked on. If Brittany already felt she didn't belong and is already angry and depressed because she doesn't fit in, all this does is underscore it. If she thought it, now she knows it.
Isolated and depressed, Brittany's family notices she's suffering.
And they want to help her to get out of this weirdness, this depression that she's in. They try therapy, and Tanya takes Brittany, but it really doesn't have much of an effect at all.
Instead, Brittany begins to self-harm in order to cope.
All she could do is internalize her rage and depression. And that's where we get the self-damaging behaviors. It's all internalized. I feel lousy, I feel bad, I'm depressed, I'm unhappy, so now I'm going to damage myself.
One of the few things Brittany seems to relate to is a violent TV show, American Horror Story.
American Horror Story is incredibly popular. It's gone on for multiple seasons, picking up a very dedicated following.
In season 1 of American Horror Story, viewers are introduced to the Harmon family.
They were a mother, father, and daughter who moved from Boston into a fictional mansion in LA that would be dubbed the Murder House.
Resembling Brittany, the Harmon's only daughter, Violet, feels like an outsider.
Violet Harmon is a teenager that doesn't really fit in. She seems to have trouble making friends at school.
At her new school, Violet feels isolated and completely alone. Something Brittany knows all too well.
Brittany sees Violet. She relates very strongly to Violet because Violet doesn't feel she belongs. And she's all alone. And she's also needs other people. So there's a definite connection there that Brittany would have felt for that character.
Violet even deals with her loneliness and depression just like Brittany by performing self-mutilation.
Violet's life has been miserable. She's just kind of left alone. Her interests are death and dying. She's dark.
In season 1, Violet spends most of her time in her room, where she meets another misunderstood teenager, Tate.
Violet and Tate are both outcasts, so they bond because of the fact that they really don't have anyone else. They understand each other, something that neither one had found until now.
While in the show, Violet falls in love with her new friend. Off-screen, Brittany also finds companionship.
Brittany met a girl named Jennifer. Brittany and Jennifer were both in the same class, and Jennifer felt like an outcast too. So that resonated between the two of them.
The girls form a quick connection, but for Brittany, the bond is romantic.
This went from being a platonic friendship to a romantic relationship.
Trust me, I am.
I think it was very meaningful that she had someone, because having someone then signifies that she is someone, that she now belongs because she's attractive enough to have a girlfriend. And she has someone, assumingly, who loves her and will support her.
As the girls fall for each other, they discover a shared love for all things scary.
Both of these girls love anything that is dark. They talk about it together, and it's their obsession.
Filling their minds with a constant stream of morbid images, Brittany and Jennifer fantasize about death.
When the girls get their driver's license, they spend a lot of time in cemeteries. They drive from one and another to spend time with the dead. The two girls are so obsessed with killing and death. They make up scenarios they could enact. They think about going into a public place and slitting everybody's throats. This is disturbing.
In American Horror Story, Violet and Tate also dream of a world filled with bloodshed.
Through flashbacks and dreams, we see Violet dream about slitting her throat, along with some other violent images. We also see Tate seemingly fantasize about a mass shooting.
As soon as they are able, Brittany and Jennifer get an apartment of their own.
It's a big step for both of them, because before that, they were just living at home with their parents in high school.
They become closer and closer because they're living together and seeing each other all the time. Brittany is frankly quite stricken and smitten with Jennifer. And her girlfriend becomes the center of her whole world.
But just like in American Horror Story, what starts off as the picture of innocence soon turns into a nightmare.
Life isn't always easy, and teenagers are notorious for not understanding the demands that the real world and real responsibilities place on a person.
Bills start to pile up. If you don't pay the rent, you get thrown out.
The girls look for another way out of their desperate situation.
Brittany tells her girlfriend, hey, I could steal this money and we'd be set.
$100,000.
Brittany and Jennifer are about to live their very own American Horror Story.
Everything in these two girls' lives was leading up to something just completely unimaginable. And just like the Harmon family who moved into the murder house, the real-life tragedy is just beginning.
18-year-old Brittany Dwyer and her girlfriend Jennifer are living together in their first apartment.
They were socially outcast. They found each other, became friends, and then they fell in love.
Brittany and Jennifer have a strong connection to the television show American Horror Story.
They were showing clear signs of being obsessed. A lot of teenagers can sit and watch horror films, and they can be creeped out and they can be scared, and yet it doesn't impact on their life or how they look at everyone else. But people who have a deep psychological flaw, this can turn them in the wrong direction.
Their sense of reality was pretty dark to begin with. They didn't like anyone else. They were very angry that they'd been made fun of. They didn't feel they belonged. And then watching slasher and horror films, seeing all these people get killed all the different ways, Brittany, who feels powerless, that would have given her a sense of pleasure.
In the first season of American Horror Story, the show's creators decide to focus less on blood and gore and more on the characters who flicker between the living and the dead. In particular, the romance between teenagers Violet Harmon and her boyfriend Tate.
It's a particular love story. Two outcasts drawn to violence and pain. They don't have anybody else, so I guess they can only be drawn towards one another.
Brittany and her girlfriend Jennifer's relationship seems similar to Violet and Tate.
She's in love with Jennifer. It's her friend, her best friend, and her girlfriend. She just thought it was all going to be happily ever after.
But Brittany's fairy tale ending is not meant to be.
Brittany thought living with Jennifer was going to be the most perfect thing.
Like the Harmon family in American Horror Story, what seems like the perfect setting for a new chapter is actually the beginning of the end.
In reality, there was one thing about independence she completely forgot, and that was responsibility walks hand in hand. The bills started piling up, and she didn't know what she was going to do.
Money struggles are a common theme in season 1 of American Horror Story.
The murder house is this grand mansion that the Harmon family put all of their money into.
But shortly after moving in, the Harmons realize their home is haunted.
It seemed like a great investment until things started to move and the family started to see things. And then their lives began to get torn apart.
Before they know it, the Harmons are on the verge of bankruptcy, unable to flee their diabolical dwelling.
It's a pretty classic horror story plotline, given that you want to run and you want to flee, but in the end, it's the house that's in control.
Brittany is also in a desperate situation.
She can't ask her family for help. If her family realizes she's not making ends meet, they're going to want her to move back home, which means that she's no longer with Jennifer, and that's unacceptable to her.
So she turns to drugs and alcohol as a way to cope with the mounting financial pressure.
Unfortunately, drugs and alcohol, at least momentarily, help an individual to function and not to deal with some of the stressors and anxiety that they are under.
Brittany doesn't know what she's going to do. So when her mother, Tanya, calls and invites her on a trip to visit her beloved grandfather, Robert Whitwell, Brittany seemingly jumps at the chance to escape her problems.
Even though Brittany is falling apart, she is still very loyal to her grandfather.
Brittany and her mother make the 20-hour drive to his house.
Robert was beloved by everyone. He was a great storyteller. He had a great sense of humor, loved to laugh, loved to be happy, and loved to be around his family.
Robert Whitwell made everybody around him feel good. He was uplifting, he was supportive. The whole neighborhood loved him. He was always looking out for people who needed help.
Being with Robert was wonderful for Brittany. It made her feel like her troubles at home all went away.
Brittany.
Huh?
But that all changes the moment Brittany enters her grandfather's shed.
Brittany's taken to a shed by her granddad, and he pulls out a box.
This is your grandmother's ring.
And he opens it and reveals his life savings.
In the box is approximately $100,000.
What's that doing out here?
He wants Brittany's mom to know about this in case anything happens to him.
That's not safe out here.
Brittany's mother, Tanya, she flipped. She said, "You can't have this money sitting out in a shed. Somebody will get it."
It's not safe here. Put the ring back.
It's perfectly safe. It's locked up.
And she says, "This is really not safe. You should put it in a bank." He goes, "No, I will never, ever put my money in a bank. I don't trust banks."
You know, the door's locked all the time. Who's gonna come out in this shed?
A lot of older people, if we go back during the Depression, and we just look at Brittany's grandfather,
Father's crazy.
banks were not the insured and safe institution they are now.
Robert's confidence that his money is safe deals with the fact that nobody would suspect it's there, nobody knows it's there. However, Brittany knows.
Back at home, all Brittany can think about is her grandfather's hidden money.
This is your grandmother's ring.
That money haunted her mind.
What's that doing out here?
To her, it would be the answer to all her problems.
Who's gonna come out in this shed?
It would solve every problem she ever had.
For Brittany, who's not paying her rent, surrounded by bills, taking drugs, has no way to support herself, all she can think about is getting that money that her grandfather has.
$100,000 is in a shoebox in a shed. No, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
When Brittany gets back from her trip, she tells Jennifer all about this money. Tells her where it's hidden and talks about what it would mean for them if they could have some of that money.
I mean, we could just show up and everything would be all right. We would just steal it. And we'd be so set.
Are you crazy?
And then she tells Jennifer, we need to steal it.
Just trust me.
Brittany comes up with a plan. If she steals $30,000 of the $100,000, she's sure her grandfather won't notice the missing money.
Safe, it's locked up.
Brittany explains that if the two work together and steal the money, they'd be set for life.
We would just go visit him. He won't even know it's gone.
Jennifer's a little taken back at first, and then Brittany says, with that money, they can pay all the past bills, they can catch up and have everything good and buy everything they want, and the money will basically last forever.
Trust me.
She doesn't have a realistic concept of how quickly money goes.
Brittany and Jennifer eventually decide to secretly make the 20-hour drive to Robert's house.
Brittany checks into a hotel, and Jennifer goes to case the house.
It would be odd for the grandfather to look out the window and see his granddaughter because they live so far away. So she checked into the hotel. Well, Brittany's in the hotel, and Jennifer walks past her grandfather's house. Robert Whitwell is outside. And she passes him, and he says hello to her. And Jennifer was really taken by him. She sat and wrote a text to Brittany. She said, OMG, he's lovely. Brittany texted back, yeah, he's lovely. Don't get too attached.
The next night, the girls sneak back over to Robert's house. Their plan is to break into the backyard shed and steal $30,000.
They get to the backyard and they see the shed. At this point, they've got to be a mix of nerves and excitement.
You have two individuals who are being driven by their impulsive greed. And so they see the shed, and all they want to do is just break into it and grab that money.
But at that moment, everything goes wrong.
When the girls approached the shed that night, they were taken by surprise because of the motion sensors on the lights.
In American Horror Story, just when you think the coast is clear, the house stops you in your tracks.
They were terrified and they were afraid of being seen, and certainly Brittany was afraid of being identified. So they ran.
But Brittany isn't giving up, and next time, she'll do whatever it takes to get her hands on the money.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but ultimately, they were gonna kill if they needed to get the rest of the money.
American Horror Story fan Brittany Dwyer has one mission in mind: steal $30,000 from her grandfather's $100,000 life savings.
Brittany is now drowning in debt. The money that her grandfather has is the answer to her prayers.
$100,000.
Knowing she can't do it alone, Brittany convinces her girlfriend, Jennifer, to be her partner in crime.
Jennifer is understandably concerned about getting caught. Brittany said, "Oh, don't worry. We'll just take $30,000 and he'll never even notice it's gone."
Brittany's grandfather, Robert, keeps the money in his backyard shed under lock and key.
Robert is mistrustful of banks, and he believes that having so much money at home is actually safer.
Perfectly safe. It's locked up.
He has no idea that his very own granddaughter would be interested in robbing him.
In American Horror Story, evil is always close to home.
No matter what season of the show that you watch, evil is a lot closer than you think. In season 1, Murder House, the house itself won't let the family escape.
With each terrifying episode, the Harmon family becomes more desperate to escape their home.
As time goes by, we're introduced to more and more spirits that are trapped within the house, terrorizing the family. The family gets to a point where they'll do just about anything to get what they want, which is to flee the house.
Off-screen, Brittany is inspired.
Brittany is obsessed with American Horror Story for its dark plot, which is meant to scare. But she also picked up on the desperation of the Harmon family. Just like the Harmon family, Brittany will do whatever it takes to get what she wants, which is to steal her grandfather's money.
But like in American Horror Story, nothing goes as planned. When Brittany and Jennifer attempt to steal Robert's life savings, they are scared away before they can get to the money.
When they go home, everything is just the same.
You can just sit here and pretend like nothing's changed.
They don't have money, instead all they have is bills.
The stress at home is just too much for Jennifer to bear. Shortly after the attempted robbery, she breaks up with Brittany.
Jennifer must have realized this isn't working. This isn't a relationship. This is a burden.
One more time. Let's try one more time.
Not only is it an emotional burden, but it's a financial burden. It's just all wrong. And she was wise to exit.
I can't keep doing this over and over again.
That revelation pierced Brittany's heart. Jennifer is the center of Brittany's life. She can't even imagine life without Jennifer.
Brittany moves out of the apartment.
Brittany has nothing. So she had nothing before, and now she has nothing currently. It's really a pretty miserable existence.
Angry and alone, Brittany moves in with a woman she met on social media, 22-year-old Bernadette Burns.
Bernadette is a drug addict, and she recently lost her child in a custody battle.
Well, they said I'm an unfit parent, so I gotta get some money and then get her back, but...
She wanted money to get her child back, but she didn't want to give up the drugs.
In season 1 of American Horror Story, Violet experiments with narcotics.
The Harmons don't have a normal house, so instead of being scared, Violet takes a lot of sleeping pills to try to finally get some sleep.
But when she eventually wakes up, she comes to a horrible realization.
She ends up overdosing and killing herself, becoming a ghost forever stuck in the house.
The addictions have control over them. And everything revolves around the drugs. Everything within their life is controlled by their addiction.
In Brittany's mind, there is only one way out of rock bottom: her grandfather's money.
It had been a few months since the unsuccessful attempt for Brittany to steal money from her grandfather. Even though time went by, the money was never far from Brittany's mind. She thought about it every day.
My grandpa has like a whole bunch of money in his shed. It's a whole bunch of money. $100,000.
Brittany tells Bernadette about Robert's life savings and asks her to help steal it.
We could like drive over one day and
Just take it.
Bernadette is the perfect accomplice because Bernadette desperately needs money.
Are you serious?
Bernadette agrees to help Brittany because Bernadette feels that getting that money can help her maybe get her daughter back.
You could, like, be my getaway driver or something.
The girls immediately begin mapping out their upcoming heist.
This new plan to get the money was very much the same. They'd drive down to the grandfather's house. They would steal the money and they would go. But it was a little bit different this time.
Brittany's decided that she wants to steal the entirety of Robert's life savings. She wants all $100,000 instead of just $30,000.
Now, Brittany was willing to do anything.
Even if that means killing her grandfather.
Why turn to murder? Well, taking all the money riskier is because the grandfather then will see that it's all gone. At this point, they're just greedy. They just don't care anymore.
Brittany believes that by killing her grandfather, it will be harder for police to track the stolen money back to her. Once again, she makes the 20-hour drive to her grandfather Robert Whitwell's house. Only this time, she has Bernadette by her side and murder on her mind.
The girls arrived at Robert Whitwell's house.
You gonna go?
At 11 a.m.
I don't think I can do it.
They spent all their money on gas, so there's no turning back now.
What if someone sees us?
No one's gonna see us. You need to go inside.
She knows she has to go and do this alone.
Take this and do what we came here for.
Her intentions were premeditated. She went with a knife. Her intentions were to kill her grandfather. And so she leaves Bernadette behind in the car.
Brittany went to the house with a knife concealed in her clothing. Brittany needs that money. She's desperate. She's a drug addict and she's drowning in debt.
Brittany, are you okay?
Brittany realizes that in order to not get caught, she's going to have to kill her grandfather.
Brittany Dwyer is in the middle of her very own American horror story. She is set on murdering her grandfather so she can steal the $100,000 he keeps hidden at his house.
Brittany is addicted to drugs. You can't do them but so long before they have more control of you than you have of them.
Brittany believes she'll be able to pay off her financial debt and fund her drug addiction. Her roommate, Bernadette Burns, has come along to help.
Take this and do what we came here for.
While Bernadette waits in the car, Brittany goes into her papa's house to murder him.
In American Horror Story, murder is a common solution to problems.
Death is such a prominent part of every episode that for a character to make it from the first episode till the end of the season is a pretty huge feat.
In the show's first season, the Harmon family is terrorized by the spirits who have been murdered in their new home.
One by one, these spirits make themselves known, and we learn who they are and how they came to be in the murder house.
Off-screen, Brittany also plans to make her grandfather a thing of the past.
Robert was having a normal day. He was surprised by his granddaughter's visit.
Brittany, are you okay? Well, come on in.
Robert loved Brittany, and he would probably do anything under the sun for his granddaughter. They look through family photo albums, and they spend time just being in each other's company talking.
But the longer Brittany spends with her grandfather, the more nervous she gets.
It was a sentimental journey. that made her realize maybe she didn't have what it took to kill her grandfather. She texted to Bernadette saying, "I can't do it." Bernadette texts back, "You have to. It's going to be suspicious if you don't." Harden up. Do it.
Bernadette was there to kind of egg her on, and Bernadette was the person in her life. And Bernadette was someone that she had already discussed this with. It's interesting what we would do alone and what we will do with another person.
Brittany tells her grandfather it's time for her to leave.
Brittany takes out a knife and savagely stabs her grandfather in the back of the neck. Robert is shocked. At first, he can't really believe what's happening. This little girl he loves so much has just attacked him. She stabs him 3 more times in the neck and chest.
After she stabbed him, he turned around and said, "Why?" Like, "Why are you doing this to me?" And she couldn't give him an answer.
Robert stumbles into the kitchen. He is hoping to find something to staunch the blood and save his life, and he's confused and hurt and bleeding out at this point. Brittany actually starts to help Robert, and for a moment, she's showing him kindness while she's still trying to kill him.
But it's too late.
While she waits for his death, she needs something to do with her hands. So she goes and starts washing dishes with her back to her dying grandfather.
She's washing the dishes to make sure he truly dies.
With Robert dead in his own kitchen, Brittany begins her hunt for his money.
Brittany texts Bernadette. It's done. The 2 girls scoured the house. They were looking for a key to that padlock so they could get into the shed, looking everywhere for that vast sum that they knew there was. Looking for money, tearing things apart.
But Brittany is coming up short.
Brittany thought she had no choice. She couldn't figure out a way into the shed, so they would just take whatever they could find. They found some rare coins. They found 2 digital cameras that belonged to Robert and about $1,000 in cash. Girls drive away, leaving Robert's dead body on the kitchen floor where it fell.
When it's all said and done, Brittany murders her grandfather for a little more than $1,000. A fraction of what she anticipated. The copycat killers flee the scene, thinking the crime will look like a robbery gone wrong. But just like in American Horror Story, nothing stays hidden for long. Brittany Dwyer has killed her grandfather in an attempt to steal his $100,000 life savings.
Brittany wants to pay off her bills and buy drugs and buy alcohol. And somehow, this troubled young woman seems to think a few dollars in her pocket is going to solve all her problems.
In her beloved TV series, American Horror Story, trying to solve the problem only ends in death.
American Horror Story is really good at allowing us to view things from the character's point of view. And you could see how desperate their situation is and how badly they want to get out of it.
Brittany is willing to do anything to escape her real-life problems, but it's all about to come crashing down. In her grandfather's neighborhood, people are becoming suspicious.
They noticed that his newspapers were starting to pile up, something they'd never seen before. Nobody could remember seeing Robert around lately, which was also quite out of character for him.
Robert's neighbors gain access to his house, where they make a devastating discovery.
When they walked into the house, they walked into a bloodbath. Robert Whitwell had bled to death on his kitchen floor. There was no life left in him.
Police immediately look into who would want this sweet old man dead.
Once Brittany and Bernadette got home from committing the murder, Bernadette told other people about the murder.
The police received an anonymous tip. And it said that Bernadette and Brittany had gone down there to rob that man. And now he was dead.
Bernadette could not keep it a secret. She told other people about the murder, and one of those people possibly called the police.
Authorities zero in on Brittany and discover all the evidence they need.
Police find all the incriminating text messages on Brittany's phone. From her reluctance to kill Robert to the "it's done." She never deleted any of that. The police discover 19,000 text messages between Brittany and her former girlfriend, Jennifer.
Brittany is arrested and charged with her grandfather's murder.
Well, the family was devastated. It wasn't something they expected, and they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that a family member had killed their grandfather, especially Brittany, who they had perceived as loving their grandfather, and who they knew that their grandfather loved Brittany.
Brittany pled guilty to murder, and she was sentenced to 21 years to life in prison.
Bernadette is also found guilty and sentenced to 13.5 years to life in prison.
When Brittany pleads, she says that she was inspired by the show American Horror Story.
Unlike most viewers of the popular TV series, Brittany believes American Horror Story is more than just entertainment.
Brittany watched the show and used what she learned from it to commit murder. She's an authentic copycat killer.
The tragedy of this case is that no one got what they wanted. Families lost their grandfather. Families are left to grieve. And it was all for nothing.
And now, like the Harmon family in season 1 of American Horror Story, Brittany is trapped between 4 walls.
Season 1 ends with the entire Harmon family dead, never to leave the house. And now Brittany knows exactly how it feels to be trapped.